Hello everybody, welcome back to Max Reviews, and today we are going to be ranking all 32 MCU, Marvel Cinematic Universe, Marvel movies and shows from the worst to the best. I'm Brayden, this is Max Reviews, and just so you know, I'm going to be doing one of these like every single year where I just rank all the Marvel movies and shows. This is mostly from remembering. I haven't really rewatched a ton of them, so here's my opinion. Leave yours down in the comment section, and let's get started. So, coming in last place, 32nd place here, is going to be Eternals. I did a review for this yesterday. You should probably check it out. Yeah, originally when I was watching this movie, I was thinking that it would be bad, but it wouldn't be that bad. I was, thinking, comparing it to Captain Marvel. It was, better than Captain Marvel, and then it just went down in the final act. I did not like what they did with the characters. It's too confusing. Too much space, the villains are bad, and just the Celestials have nothing to do in this movie. The Eternals, I only care about one of them, and so it's just an extremely sort of boring, bad movie. It's still, I would not call it 100% bad. It's like 6 out of 10, but I don't really hate any of these movies. I'm very disappointed in this one, but I don't 100% hate it. And so, Phase 4, worst movie, that's sort of sad, but still they tried something new, so I'm happy with that. Okay, 31st place here is going to be Thor, The Dark World. In these final four here, these bottom four, we each have one from a phase, and this is Phase 2's one, their worst movie. So, this is sort of, I didn't really notice this until I was looking over the list, but I have one movie from each phase in the bottom four here. So, Thor, The Dark World, yeah, this movie is better than Eternals because I think it could have a bit more action, a bit more lines and stuff that I'm like, oh yeah, and I'm more intrigued by it and I like it more than in the Eternals. Even the villain, he has no clear motivation or anything, but this is sort of like a professionally made, boring or bad movie that still I could get some enjoyment out of. The villain is probably the weakest part here because his minions are stronger than him. He looks just like his minions. And Loki is so boring in this movie. This is a pretty forgettable Marvel movie. And just what they do in this movie, it's not very intriguing. This is the lowest point of Phase 2. And this was the worst until Eternals came along. Okay, 30th place here, we have Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel, when I first saw it, I was really sort of disappointed in it. I didn't like it. And then I rewatched it a couple times, and I've sort of warmed up to it a bit more. Samuel L. Jackson in it is really fun, but Captain Marvel herself is a bit too supercharged, and she doesn't really have much of a character. I hope they fix that in the Marvels, but so far she's the worst main superhero. Out of the superheroes that have gotten their own solo films, she's easily the least developed and least likable. And even in Avengers Endgame, she doesn't really do anything. So Captain Marvel herself isn't that great. Also, you have the Skrulls, who they're okay. Ben Mendelsohn as Talos can be really funny at times, but this movie, for the most part, is pretty boring, and it is nowhere near as good as it should be. And yeah, that's for the most part most of it. It's still okay to watch. It's not trash. Okay, 29th place here, we have Thor 1 from 2011. I think this is another pretty boring movie because there's two parts of it. There's the Asgard part, and then there's the Earth plot. And I find the stuff on Asgard a lot more compelling. It is sort of Shakespearean. And then we have a very funny, jokey sort of side to the movie. And so, I think Captain Marvel, if I rewatch these and actually go over them piece by piece, Captain Marvel might be a bit better. But as for now, I like Thor just a bit more. Loki in this movie is pretty laughably bad, but he's okay. He's okay. You had to start somewhere with him. Thor is not too good in this movie. Jane Foster, I would say, is annoying. But it does look pretty cool. It could have some nice character arcs and stuff. And so, I find this movie to be okay. It's not top-level MCU, nowhere near it. And it's the weakest film in Phase 1. But still, I think it's fine. And now, 28th place, we have Iron Man 2. Now, when I first saw this movie, I've only seen it once, just total honesty right now. I saw it like a few months ago, and I'm like, I thought this movie would be so much worse than it actually was. I hear people saying all the time, this is the worst MCU movie. This is second worst MCU movie. This is horrible. Well, it's not. It's bottom 5, so it isn't perfect. But I actually enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. So, just the characters in this movie, they're still funny. Robert Downey Jr. isn't as good as he is in other movies. War Machine doesn't have a ton to do, but it's light on action scenes. But for the most part, I think this movie can be really funny. Black Widow is really cool with her action scenes in this movie. The good thing I could say about this movie is the action scenes with Black Widow and also Iron Man and War Machine. Just the final act there with them battling is fun. Justin Hammer, I think, is one of the most underrated MCU villains ever. He's so just fun to see on screen, and I just want more of him. I want to see him in Armor Wars. So this movie, although bad, isn't as bad as I thought it would. And Whiplash, he's not the greatest. He's sort of a copy of Justin Hammer, but I'm still fine with him. So this movie, yeah, it's a lot better than I thought it would be. And then 27th place, we have Spider-Man Far From Home. Yeah, this is sort of a frustrating movie because it looks really good with the CGI, with Mysterio being played by Jake Gyllenhaal, just so good. But the actual plot of the movie isn't too compelling or too good. It's about Iron Man giving a high schooler Edith glasses that could legitimately destroy, so he could kill anybody that he wants. I don't know why Tony gave it to him, and that's a very giant part in it. And then the humor, Josh Whedon in this movie just is boom, 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 humor all the time. Just keep hitting them. And half the time they land, and I laugh, and then the other half of the time, like with Night Monkey, him and the girl being like, take your clothes off, and then also with just some of the weird jokes that they have in here, it does not work, and it's just cringy, and but other times, it's really funny. But I think sometimes it's a more fun and rewatchable movie than it is if you actually think about it as a critic it's a summer blockbuster movie. It's not amazing. Get to see explosions on screen. It's a nice memory, but overall, it's not too amazing of a film. And now, 26th place, we have one that's probably going to be controversial, Captain America, the First Avenger. I've seen some people in some lists where this is top 5 and even number 1. For me, this movie has never been as good as people say it is. I really enjoy this movie still. We're getting into the movies that I actually enjoy quite a bit, and shows and stuff. But Captain America, the First Avenger, I really do like the Captain America character and his story in this movie, where he wants to fight but he can't, and so they give him the super soldier serum and he fights. He finally gets to fight. But this is easily the weakest Captain America movie, and they're still trying to figure some stuff out. They do sort of repeat some stuff, like with the guy dying, sort of like in Iron Man, and then also Red Skull in this movie is not too great of a villain at all. And then the final battle can be a bit underwhelming, I would say. Him versus Red Skull is just not super. It's not a super great fight. Red Skull himself, he's frustrating, and he sort of distracts. Everything slows down. But I do really love the Captain America story, where all these great moments that you have in the movie with Captain America. That is great. The rest of the movie, not as good as that. I still really do enjoy this movie quite a bit, but not as much as some people. And now, 25th place, we have another controversial placement, but The Incredible Hulk. I know some people are going to be really mad that I actually put this movie this high. Some people I see, they actually put it in, like, top 20. Not me. I find this movie a lot better than people think it is. Sure, it is very different from the rest of the MCU movies. It's not jokey. It's done by Universal. The CGI, at times, is pretty bad. The blood falling down, if you remember that, you'll know what I look. Not too great. Hulk doesn't look as good as he does in other movies, but I just find this movie to be a fun or like more Hulk movie that it's just you get to see Hulk Abomination fight at the end. The actual battles and stuff are great, and then the characters. I actually like this version of Bruce Banner more than the guy that plays him now. I can't remember his name right now, but the guy that plays him now. I like this guy more. So that could probably be a controversial opinion, but I actually do really enjoy this movie quite a bit. It's not as bad as people say it is, and even though the CGI is a little bad, I still think it's okay for the year that it came out. When did it come out? I think it came out 2009, 2010, something like that. So yeah, I still do enjoy this movie. I know that might be a controversial opinion, but I do. And now, unfortunately, in 24th place, we have Hawkeye. I know some people really enjoyed this show a lot more than I do. I did enjoy it, yeah, 100%. But nowhere near as much as other people. This is my least favorite MCU show. And some people, a ton of people, like every person ever seems to think this is the best MCU show. And you're probably 100% shocked that this is at this place, but for me, Hawkeye was good. It was enjoyable, it was fun, it could be funny, it could be slightly emotional, but I don't know, it didn't 100% click with me because it started off slow. Some of the jokes didn't 100% land if you're getting with what they do in like episode 2 with them just, Hawkeye just going to see these guys to get the Ronin suit back. And then the Kingpin cameo, it did sort of come out of nowhere. It's sort of set up, and it was nice to see him, but it was a bit underwhelming. If you've seen the Daredevil show, it is underwhelming. I do think Haley Steinfeld and Jeremy Renner are great in this show, and so I'm sorry that it's this low. I did still enjoy it, but nowhere. The more I think about it, the more lower it goes. Now we have 23rd place here, Doctor Strange. This movie has some of the most cool designs in the entire MCU, with just amazing seeing the mirror dimensions and all this creative stuff with the world. It looks sort of like Inception, but with Marvel. It looks amazing. The magic stuff is great. It looks pretty good. The actual battles, great. The sort of problem here is the plot, and the plot is nothing 100% special. It's pretty much MCU things sort of put into this Doctor Strange. You have the Doctor Strange thing, and then they sort of put the MCU hero template into the Doctor Strange. They sort of mix them up. Because for Doctor Strange, hero loses something and decides he gets to become a hero at the end. So he loses his hands. Iron Man, he had the thing with the shrapnel. Captain America, he just wanted to help. Let me think. I'm trying to come up with something. Yeah. Thor lost his hammer, lost his power. Just all these sort of stuff. They lose something and then they evolve into the hero. Same thing with sort of Doctor Strange. I still think this movie is pretty enjoyable to watch. Another problem here is the villains. I don't really like Caecilius that much. He's always been that sort of, okay, this could be interesting, but he's not as interesting as he seems on paper, sort of a villain. And then Dormammu is a big third act final guy to fight, but he's actually one of the better ones. Third battle fight guys to fight. But yeah, the visuals look great here. The stuff is really cool, but the plot and the villains don't go as well with the rest of the stuff. Can't wait for the sequel though. That's the next MCU thing coming out. So, well, actually, no, Moon Knight is. So anyway, I'm just really looking forward to the sequel a ton. 22nd place here, we have Ant-Man. Ant-Man. Oh, what a fun, enjoyable movie. You know, after you have such big stakes movie, like this movie came out right after Avengers Age of Ultron, where you have this big, epic guys dying, people being killed, death. And then you get Ant-Man. This is just sort of like a breath of nice fresh air, sort of refreshing to watch this, just have the MCU movie, and they're not trying to squish the guy into the MCU hero thing. No, this is a heist movie with Paul Rudd. And so, just, Paul Rudd in this movie is great. The emotions are pretty good. The Ant-Man stuff, shrinking down, yeah, it's cool enough. Characters, they're really fun. And then, the villain is sort of the fail here. He is a lot like, Obadiah Stane, sort of. A copy of him, a version of him that wants to took over the company and is stealing the guy's tech, and same sort of thing with other villains that we've seen in the MCU. So villain isn't too great. That's sort of the flaw of the movie. But still, this is an enjoyable movie. You got Louise in this movie. It's a fun movie, and I just love how it ends. It's just such a fun ending. This is just a fun movie. Just have Paul Rudd, and it's a heist movie, and I like heist movies. Prison Breaks, heist movies, that sort of thing. That's nice. And to see that sort of thing in the MCU, that's sort of what I want. So, this pretty good MCU movie, sort of in the mid-tier. I still think these movies right here are good to great in that category. And now, 21st place, we have Iron Man 3. Iron Man 3, I like this movie a lot more than I thought it would. When I first saw it, I was like, yeah, I actually like this a lot more. So, it has weaker elements to it. There's some side stuff that doesn't work too much. And, the villain Mandarin twist isn't as good, because I think the Mandarin would be a lot better villain than Aldrich Killian. Aldrich Killian as a villain, not so great. Mandarin, a lot better if he was actually paid off. But the thing here, Robert Downey Jr. humor he's really funny in this movie. One of his funnies. He's really great with his sarcasm in this movie. That's really great. It sort of does feel slightly like the Infinity War Endgame of the Iron Man trilogy, because it's bigger, epicer. The final battle is just awesome. And then if you sort of step back, plot and everything, I'm pretty good with it. How it ends, I know some people, they might have problems like, he threw away his thing, but he didn't actually throw it away, and he's back in Avengers Age of Ultron. Well, this is sort of like a different story, I would consider it. And the thing with this, it really does sort of make sense. They tried for something different. I don't know if people have noticed that, but the post-credit scene is a lot more than you think it is. So it's Iron Man talking to Bruce Banner, the Hulk, and he's like, and telling him the entire story, because Robert Downey Jr. is narrating this, and it's from Robert Downey Jr., Tony Stark, Iron Man's perspective. So maybe he didn't actually throw the thing away. So it's very, if you think about it in that way, in that sense, I think the movie can make a lot more sense. If that makes any sense to you. And so, yeah, it's just a pretty good movie right there. 20th place here, we have the hardest thing to put on this entire list, What If. Now, What If, when I saw it, I liked it quite a bit. And then it's divided because you have some amazing episodes. Doctor Strange episodes, the Ultron plotline, Zombies episode, Star-Lord, and then you also have the not-so-great stuff. Eric Killmonger, Captain Carter, Thor, Parties on Earth. So, it's extremely mixed for me. You have the, 4 out of 10 stuff that's not 100% creative. It's just fine. And then you have the 10 out of 10 stuff where it is absolutely amazing. And if this was a movie, it would be one of the top 10 best movies on this list. So it's mixed. Overall, I'm putting it on the positive because the animation here, gorgeous. I just love the design and the animation of this. One of the, I'd say, top 5 best animated things ever. Top 10 best animated shows ever. It's very, very well done for the animation. I love it so much. The design is just so great. And sometimes it's also mixed with getting the voice actors back, because you do have the voice actors back for like T'Challa, which is so great, for Doctor Strange, for the Ancient One, and then you also have replacements like with Captain America and Iron Man. So you could usually tell when it's a replacement. So that's also mixed. So I'm putting it sort of in the middle. I still really do enjoy this show and can't wait for season 2. If it had all been positive episodes, this probably could have been second best MCU show. And now 19th place, we have another movie that's going to be in a controversial opinion, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I know a bunch of people absolutely love this movie, and this is their favorite MCU movie. And for me, I do really enjoy this movie. It is emotional, it can be heartfelt, it can be extremely funny, and then it could also just end on such a great note. But there's also problems in it. The humor does not always land on this, where they're making jokes about turds and the guys' faces are going all weird while they're planet hopping or whatever. And the emotions sometimes don't work. Like, Ego doesn't do anything. He doesn't do anything. I know he's Star-Lord's dad, but he doesn't do anything sinister, or even that. He does nothing until the end. The gold people are really just, what? That's what you think. The gold people, whatever. They're just so weird. I don't get why they're even in this, other than to set up Adam Warlock. They're like sort of comedy. I do enjoy this movie. Everything that they do with Yondu, what they do with Rocket, amazing stuff. Star-Lord stuff sort of mixed. Nebula and Gamora stuff, pretty good. And then stuff with Drax, not so much. But I don't like this movie as much as most people. The soundtrack, I think it's okay. It's not as good as Guardians of the Galaxy, but it's still okay. So this is a movie for me. I could understand if some people buy into this and this is their number one MCU movie of all time. I could see that, but for me, unfortunately, it is not. Now in 18th place, we have Avengers Age of Ultron. Another frustrating movie because its high highs can be amazing. It could have epic moments where the final fight is absolutely epic. It's like, I would say maybe even better than the Avengers battle. And the Hulkbuster vs. Hulk, epic, so cool. Opening scene, great. And then also, Ultron can be a bit weird. I think he's more positive than negative for me. He can be a bit weird at times with stuff. But also you have all these, they tried to upgrade and do double everything from the Avengers film. So double the amount of stakes, double the amount of action, double the amount of heroes, and then double the amount of plot lines. So I had this plot line where Bruce Banner, the Hulk, and Scarlet Witch are getting together. And after this movie, nothing is really said about that. You have a brief thing about it where in Infinity War and Ragnarok that's sort of scratched off. Thor. He is sitting in like a bath with Eric Selvig to go check out and see visions of the Infinity Stones. And then he just is like, okay, I gotta find the Infinity Stones. What? That made no sense. A total side quest. And so, there's all this stuff. And then Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, yeah, they're put in this movie, but they also don't have a bunch of emotion and stuff. Vision's in the movie for just a little bit, but he's okay when he's in it. And so, it's 100% mixed for everything. But I decided to go positive on this movie. I do really enjoy these high highs. It might have lower lows, but still, it's a very watchable, enjoyable movie. It's not as good as the Avengers, and it is the worst Avengers movie, but it is still pretty good. And now 17th place, we have one that probably might move down in the future, but Black Widow. So Black Widow, I saw in theaters. I had a fun time with it. I haven't felt the need to rewatch it though. Like I rewatched Shang-Chi and Legend of Ten Rings. I had to rewatch WandaVision. 100% gonna be rewatching Spider-Man No Way Home. But Black Widow, I watched it. I was like, yeah, cool action movie. Like the chemistry between the family. Villain was a bit disappointing, and then that was it. So I'm gonna need to rewatch this. I'm gonna try to do one of these rankings every year after all the shows and the movies come out. I'm gonna just rank them all. So every year. And so I'm going to have to rewatch all of them next year. So maybe my opinion will change on it. So that's right now. I'm having it pretty high, I think, actually. I think it's like a mid-Marvel tier movie. Like if you add the tiers list, it's right in the middle. And it is sort of on the negative, but I still did have a fun time with this movie and these characters and this family. Villains, another problem, Villains are always some of the hardest stuff to get in these movies. I should probably do a ranking video for them next year. But yeah, villains are another problem. But still, this movie, it's pretty good. Okay? So, yeah, that's my opinion on that. Now, 16th place, we have one that's probably going to frustrate some people. But WandaVision, I was 100% confused by WandaVision first watch. First 3 episodes, what is going on? Next 3 episodes, good. I like this. Final 3 episodes. Oof, that was hard. That was hard to go through. So, it's a mixed. I had to rewatch this. I wanted to rewatch Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I was going to rewatch both of them. But I just rewatched WandaVision, and I'm like, this show, although I was extremely disappointed at the end of the first watch, second watch, I felt okay. I'm sort of fine with this. It wasn't as bad as I remembered because I had high hopes that they'd do like Mephisto and all this other cool stuff, and I was like, are they going to do it? Is there going to be another twist thing? But no, it was just Agatha, and I guess I'm fine with that after rewatch, after going through it. The mystery is still fun. Just the emotions at the end can be really good. Even though it does have its flaws, like, why does Wanda not get punished for this? And the show doesn't really explain, like, Wanda is the main villain here. She's the one that had all this happen, and they don't really explain that. So I hope they sort of explain that in Multi-Universe of Madness. That'd be good. But I still really did enjoy rewatching this show. And I can't wait to see what they do with everything that's been set up in the future. It's going to be very interesting. 15th place, this is one that is probably going to be controversial, but Ant-Man and the Wasp. Ant-Man and the Wasp, this came out right after Avengers Infinity War, and everybody knows how Avengers Infinity War was just, it was like, everybody was down. They're like, what is going to be happening? They were hyped, but also like crushed. And then Ant-Man and the Wasp came out, just a breath of fresh air. And every time that I watch this movie, every time I just throw it in, I laugh, I have fun. I'm like, yes, this is so great, so fun. And then you have the post-credit scene and they get dusted. Sure. But the rest of this movie it's just a fun movie. I don't know why people, well, I guess I can sort of understand why people aren't as big into this movie as me. I just find it to be so fun that it works. And this is what I want from the MCU. I want a bunch of different stuff. Like, Multi-Universe of Madness is going to be darker. More insane stuff is going to be happening. Moon Knight, darker, edgier. We're going to be getting more Guardians of the Galaxy. We're going to be getting just all this new stuff. I want some more stuff. Like, maybe some sort of mystery story. But we sort of got that with WandaVision. Maybe we could get some sort of horror story. We're going to be getting a Halloween special. Maybe that could be that. So I just want the MCU to expand beyond just superheroes fighting stuff. I want it to be fun like this movie or something different. Even though they are fighting these villains, heroes fighting villains, superpowers, I want it to have a vibe to it. And that's what this movie gives. It gives a vibe of just fun. And it is so fun when you see Louise driving a car super fast and then shrinking down and all this stuff. And the villains, they don't need to be amazing. Ghost, pretty good villain. The cast here is good as ever. Sonny Birch, not so great, but still, he's a side villain. So it's just such a fun scene when you see all these characters trying to get the lab. It's just such a fun movie. And so I can understand if you guys aren't big into this movie, but I am. And now, 14th place, we have Falcon and the Winter Soldier. The show that the more I reflect on it, the more I liked it. It is very similar to WandaVision with having the villain's problem, the two buddies, two main characters as the two things that have been together for a while, and just sort of having like similar problems and similar highs and lows to them. Like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, there's some episodes that are just medium, like in the middle. It's just medium episodes. Some episodes are really good. I don't really like Carly, but other than that, there's some really good stuff in here. Zemo is sort of a disappointment. John Walker, perfect. Just such a great character in there, as he's set up to be this horrible person that you already hate first time that you see him, and then he's actually human, and he's not just this over the top villain. No, you understand him and where he's coming from and all this. And so very, very interesting show. And it does have some flaws to it with the villains, with the Sharon Carter power broker thing, with just being a bit slow in the beginning, but I think that works. Seeing these guys just being humans is really great. So if I rewatch these eventually, this could go either way. It could go up or down. We'll see. Okay, 13th place, we have Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. This movie, I think it got moved down a few spots. These are the movies that I really do like. Like, if you saw my video, I don't know, I ranked all 76 movies that I saw last year. I think this came in the 20s somewhere, maybe in the teens. I don't know, somewhere in there. I really did like this movie. And even rewatching it, I bought the DVD. I rewatched it on Disney Plus when it came there. I bought the Funko Pop. This is like the movie that Black Widow wasn't. Black Widow, I watched it. I didn't need to rewatch it that much. Shang-Chi, I rewatched it as soon as it came to Disney Plus. This movie is very fun. It can be funny. It can have its problems, but it's its own thing. The things here are the villain is so great. You have father versus son. Very sort of Star Wars. There's a bunch of movies that do this sort of thing, father versus son, and it's very emotional, potent, and it works in this movie. The 10 Rings, very interesting. Action here might be a bit too overdone, but I still like that they showed the dragon at the end, and that's just something very different for Marvel movies to do. That's what I want them to do, something different, and that's what this movie was. And just the comedy at times may not work, like with Katie, and then also Katie shooting the bow and actually hitting the dragon first try. I mean, the evil monster, that didn't 100% work for me, but the rest of this movie, this was just a fun movie. Just like you see the ending, the post-credit scene, that's what this movie is. You have your serious Marvel movies, which this can be, and it could also be a really funny movie where Wong sings karaoke with Shang-Chi. So Shang-Chi is like, I don't know, he's probably not one of the greatest characters in this movie because he's just okay. He's not insanely amazing. He's just sort of okay. Okay, so now we have 12th place here, Spider-Man Homecoming. A movie that, this is probably one of the Marvel movies that I've seen most recently. Well, actually, yeah, I watched Avengers Infinity War, Endgame, and then Spider-Man Homecoming, Far From Home, No Way Home, and Eternals, and Hawkeye. Those are what I've seen in the past month. No, 2 months, actually. So, this one I still have in my memory pretty good. So, it still holds up as a high school story, as first introduction to Peter Parker, other than, Civil War. But it's a very different sort of Marvel movie, as you have this high school story, and it's a very different Spider-Man movie, and it can be really good, with the Vulture being such a great villain, because he doesn't want to blow up the city, he's just wanting to provide for his family, and that is very just compelling. He's a real character, and it starts with the Vulture. It doesn't start with Peter. It starts with a vulture, which is very, very good. I like how Iron Man's used in this movie as being the mentor. And so just really fun movie, and I like this movie. Okay, 11th place here, now 100% making it into the top 10, but Iron Man, the first MCU movie that kicked it off. If this movie didn't make it, we would not have the MCU as we know it. But Iron Man, this movie, wow, this movie, the visual effects and everything still hold up. It's nice to see Iron Man being a bit more vulnerable and a bit more, learning how to do stuff. And Iron Man, I think, is the best MCU character. And he just has such a great character arc in him. And the final scene is probably one of the best final scenes ever. It's just, for an MCU movie, it's so great to see the ending where he just does that, I am Iron Man. And I am Iron Man, sorry. And so you also get to see like these parallels between Iron Man and Infinity War and Endgame. You get to see where he's gone and then the parallels, and it works very, very nicely. I really do still think this movie holds up. Villain, still pretty good. It was the first one where it's the guy that's got a similar suit to the other guy, and it is the first guy to be like, his entire villain motivations about being angry at Tony Stark. It's fine. So I really do love Iron Man. Okay, we made it to the top 10, people. Wow. Thank you if you're still here. It's great. Okay, 10th place, we have Black Panther. The movie that came right before Endgame, and I think 2018 was the best year for Marvel movies because you did get Infinity War, but you also got Ant-Man and the Wasp and Black Panther. Black Panther, it could be so many things. It's Black Panther, played by Chadwick Boseman, R.I.P., one of the greatest. Such a great performance by him and everything, but you had this mix of sort of like African culture and their rules and their sort of things that they continue to do, their habits and whatever. And then you also have this new technology in this world. And so Wakanda is a very interesting place in the MCU. And Black Panther is a very interesting thing. And Eric Killmonger, such a great villain in this movie, to see him in it and actually see him. He's just such a great, compelling villain is the thing. And another thing with this movie, the culture and everything works very well into the movie, how it starts, how it ends. And I really do like it. It's great. And it is like the peak of sort of MCU doing something sort of different, other than like Avengers or some other movies on here, but of something more mature is the word. They do it a more mature story instead of more just like accessible for everybody. And it's so great. I just really do love this movie. Okay, 9th place, we have the best MCU show, Loki. Loki was my number one most anticipated MCU show since they announced all the MCU shows, and it lived up to that. It is the best MCU show right now to date. It has such great characters, all Loki mostly. Owen Wilson as Mobius in this movie is very compelling and you just love him almost immediately. Loki, he gets, it's like immediately, Loki should not be brought back again is your immediate thought. But it works in this movie. Like, even the weird setup with everything, the TVA is extremely interesting in how they do this, and all the things that they do. Sylvie is great in this movie to have her be just sort of like the Loki that is a girl. The different twist on Loki. You have classic Loki, kid Loki, boastful Loki, and like classic Loki has such a great character arc in his one episode. Just a one episode arc, but it works so well. You have a ton of fun with seeing all these Lokis and each one of them betraying each other. And the TVA is such a sort of impressive force where they could go throughout all history and prune. And then the ending, the final episode, the big reveal works. It's not exactly 100% what you were thinking, but it works in the way that Loki does. And it doesn't have to be a big action movie, a show. This isn't an action show. This is more like going over will and people's opinion and just all this stuff. It's very, very, very compelling. I really cannot wait for season 2 and see more of Loki. Maybe we'll see him in Multi-Universe of Madness. That's why I'm looking so much to the movie, because legitimately anything or anybody could show up in that movie. Okay, that was just, I really did love Loki. Okay, 8th place here we have Captain America Civil War. I don't like this movie as much as Winter Soldier, just by a little bit. And Civil War, you could even see in Avengers and then Avengers Age of Ultron this tension building between Captain America and Iron Man, because they're both sort of like, who's the leader of the Avengers? Is it Captain America or Iron Man? And now Thor and Hulk are out of the picture, so you get these guys to just pick their teams and fight. This is like Avengers 2.5, and it can be how it goes. The action can be really cool. It introduces Spider-Man and Black Panther, and you get to see Ant-Man added into the mix for first time meeting all the Avengers, the interactions between everybody, and then just seeing who would choose what size and everything, who would go where and how they fight, and then how the movie ending on an emotional part with Iron Man's parents and stuff, rather than a super big action scene. Like, they could have brought all the superheroes in and added another airport sequence just bigger. No, they went smaller and had just 3 characters fighting an emotional battle. And it could be really emotional and great. And you get to see Zemo, this character who has no superpowers, take out the most powerful superhero team on Earth. And so that is just really interesting to see that you don't have to have giant lasers and Infinity Gauntlet to take out the Avengers. You just need to divide them. Okay, 7th place here we have Captain America the Winter Soldier. Another movie that a ton of people have as their number 1. My half-brother, this is his number 1. My sister, this is her number 1. And for me, it's not 100% there as number 1. It is such a great action, spy, political thriller with Captain America. Action, brutal, so amazing. And it could continue so well with Captain America the First Avenger, because Captain America the First Avenger, Captain America is pretty plain and simple. Bad guys, good guys. Avengers, pretty simple. Bad guys, good guys. But he is still sort of getting into this new world. And now things are so mixed up. He doesn't know who's the bad guys, who's the good guys. And this has some great moments in it, with Falcon being introduced and seeing Falcon as his little payoff. Black Widow in this movie. I don't know. This might be the best Black Widow character thing. Just seeing her do this. Even better than her own movie. Captain America, great in this movie. You get to see him divided. Nick Fury being Nick Fury, just so great to see Nick Fury. And then the Winter Soldier works so well as a continuation of the first Avenger and the comics. That's pretty obvious who the Winter Soldier is. But also, it's sort of a gut punch still at the same time. So, such a great movie. I can see why this is some people's number 1. Not there for me yet. And now, coming in 6th place is the original Avengers. The first big superhero team-up movie that had these characters that had their own movies, and then putting them all together, and hasn't been replicated perfectly since then, other than the other Avengers movies. People have been trying to replicate it. It hasn't 100% gone so well, like with Justice League. But it did go good with Zack Snyder's Justice League. Okay, I'm getting off topic, but the Avengers what a great movie that can have all these characters brought together. It could be emotional, it could also be heartfelt, but it could also have these characters all interacting, seeing them together. So great to just see them fighting together. Final battle is just so fun, and this is the one where you could just put it on and have a fun time. I really do love this movie so much. Such the thing that give the MCU this next push to become the big franchise that it is today. Okay, now we have 5th place, Guardians of the Galaxy. Oof. Guardians of the Galaxy is so good. I love this movie. How it starts, how it ends. The characters are so great in this movie. You have this weird family put together by James Gunn, has just been shining through everything that I've seen him do with superheroes. I haven't seen him do his other stuff, but with the Suicide Squad, with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 even, and with Peacemaker, he's just such a great filmmaker for this sort of thing. And Guardians of the Galaxy, first one, it's such a funny movie because all these characters bounce off of each other so well. The cast is great with having Chris Pratt, Zoe Zaldaga, I don't know if I'm saying her name right, Dave Bautista, and even Vin Diesel. Just so great to have all these actors and characters bouncing off of each other. Yondu is great in this movie, not as good as in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Ronan isn't exactly the greatest villain, but he did go against Thanos, so he is pretty funny in the end with Star-Lord and just how it goes. It's a great movie. This is the movie that I could put on any single time of the week, and I will just sit down, laugh, have a great time, and immediately become engaged in the movie. And another thing, the soundtrack is, in my opinion, the best soundtrack in any movie ever. I just love the music in this. I've listened to the soundtrack over 50 times just doing my stuff. So, such a great movie, such a great soundtrack, such great characters. Just love this movie so much. Coming in 4th place here, we have Spider-Man No Way Home, the newest MCU movie that I think just knocked it out of the park with where it went, with having the villains and the heroes return from the old movies. It is nostalgia, and no, it is mostly nostalgia, but it also works so well by itself by having, well, no, you need to have seen the other movies, but if you have, and if you understand this, it works so well as a Spider-Man movie, as the end of the sort of Spider-Man things, and they're just such great Spider-Man. It doesn't matter who you're talking about, Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, Tom Holland, they're all so great as a character in their own unique ways. And how this movie is sort of the origin story for the Spider-Man, Tom Holland, so great. Just how it ends, final battle, just the villains, the heroes, seeing all these interactions. This was my favorite movie of last year. But it's only the 4th favorite MCU movie, so that tells you how good these movies are. They are amazing. Okay, 3rd place, we have Thor Ragnarok. These top 3, they've been mixed around a few times, but Thor Ragnarok has always been in the top 3. You remember all the way back, 50 minutes ago, we were talking about Thor 1 and 2? Yeah, they were in the bottom 4, if you remember. Thor 3 is not there. Thor Love and Thunder is going to be pretty good, but Thor Ragnarok, such a breath of fresh air that Taika Waititi, he fixed the Thor franchise. He came into the writer's room and he's like, hey guys, you guys messed this up. I got to fix this. And he fixes it. He sure does. He takes the Thor trilogy, franchise, whatever, the Thor character, and brings him to a new place where he has villains that you actually are concerned, like Thor could die. Legitimately, his sister could kill him. She takes his eye out, destroys his hammer. Loki in this movie, great. Greatest that he's been in any Thor movie. I'm so happy I know some people are probably mad at this, but he kills off the Warriors 3 in like 5 seconds. Hela does, so that's just so perfect that I didn't really care about them. They're gone. Thank you so much, Taika. And just having that, it's so great to just see this movie. I could put this movie on any time. This is the #1 MCU movie that I just go back and watch. It has the emotions to it, with you actually have Odin's death, and you also have Asgard dying, while also being so funny and so cool and action-packed and so great. It looks great. I absolutely love this movie, but it can't come in top 2. And so second place here is Avengers Endgame, the probably biggest, most crowd-pleasing movie the MCU has ever had, with going back to their old movies and just getting the Infinity Stones. It's just such a great way to go back into the MCU and re-watch what happened and re-see it. And just going back, and then also the new stuff with seeing how these characters would deal with losing against Thanos, and then the final battle. I know people have been showing this and saying it a bajillion times, but it has payoff. It is so good. So just such a great final battle right there. And then just, even though Thanos isn't as good as he is in Infinity War, he's still pretty compelling. The characters, the final battle, yikes. I can't get over this movie. I didn't get to see it in theaters, so I am going to be like eternally mad that I didn't get to see this in theaters. At least I got to see Spider-Man No Way Home in theaters. But just this movie, such a great movie. Why it doesn't come in #1? Thanos isn't as good as he is in Infinity War, and the characters, they're not as good as they are in Infinity War again. And it takes a while to get going with the first 2 acts. It takes a while. But when you get to the final act, the first 2 acts are still like 9 out of 10. Final act, 10 out of 10. Just such a great movie. But coming in at #1 is going to be Avengers Infinity War. This is my #1 MCU movie of all time. It's probably one of my favorite movies of all time, where you have all these characters. It takes the Avengers thing, and then it just doubles it down with having all the characters ever from like everything other than Ant-Man and Hawkeye being in this movie. Such a great movie. And Thanos, this is his best movie, the best villain in an MCU movie. Just so great to have Thanos in this, and then all the characters, the interactions, the action, the final battles, everything. This is the #1 MCU movie of all time for me. I love it so much. You probably heard this a bajillion times, but it is #1. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Please like the video, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Thank you so much. This has been a long week, 9 videos. I'm Braden. This is Max Reviews. Braden out.